You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Welcome to Leafs Morning Take, presented by Bet365. This is the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take, the players-only edition. Carter Hutton in here for Nick Alberga alongside Jay Rosehill. Open an account at Bet365 today and bet on a wide range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all uppercases today. Rosie, how are we doing, buddy? They brought the big dog in. Nick is down in Florida working on his tan. He's got the mustache. You know, how you doing, buddy?
What a relief this is, getting hosted by you. It's a treat. I'm in the Flames Barn Burner new studios here in Calgary. So a little different look for the folks today, but I like you at the helm, man, looking sharp.
Yeah. They call me Carmen Sandiego, right? I got the map behind me. They never know where I am or what, where am I going to pop up here, buddy? And it's going well. Obviously, Nick asked me to host, and I was excited to jump on board here. So, what's your take so far? I haven't had a chance to chat with you. I think I jumped on once with you just for a quick little goalie hit, but what's your thoughts so far of where we're at American Thanksgiving?
Pretty solid, man. I mean, the biggest thing in the offseason was Craig Berube, and what was he going to do? Is he going to affect these guys? Was it going to go well? Were they going to respond to him? And I mean, you would think it would have been a turbulent season so far, at least a start to it. Joseph Woll goes down before the puck drops for opening night. We don't have enough time in the show to list off the injuries that they've got going on right now, especially up front. And for some reason, they are just cruising along, leading the Atlantic still. So by all accounts, a successful first quarter to the season. I'm excited to see them get their feet under them, get healthy, and really start to adapt to this new system. But I'm sorry, I don't think you can point to anything other than Craig Berube for the way they've handled the adversity so far at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he's putting things in place here to make this team get better. And we're going to jump more into it today here. I got to hit it with another little ad read here with the Nation Gear promo. Black Friday is here and it's time to score big on Nation Gear. Whether you're repping the freshest design or rocking the classics, this is your chance to snag all your favorites for 15% off. Big news, the brand new My City collection has dropped and it's part of the sale, along with other fresh gear you don't want to miss. This is your shot to grab the latest styles and the classics at unbeatable prices. Need the perfect gift for your favorite fan? Nation Gear has you covered from hoodies to hats. Make this holiday season legendary for the hockey lover in your life. It's better. Spend $200 and we'll throw in free shipping. But don't wait. Don't be on the sidelines for too long. This deal is only 1 week only. Shop now only at nationgear.com. And with that, the countdown is on too, buddy, for the sheet with Jeff Merrick. This is another one. This officially will launch Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Every weekday, Jeff will be diving into the biggest storylines shaping hockey news and rumors, emerging trends, and insights from every corner of the rink. Follow the sheet at The Sheet Hockey on all your favorite social media platforms, buddy. We made it through there.
Look
also, yeah, that was legit there.
Cleaner than Nick.
I don't know, but I learned how to read. I learned how to read at a young age, which everyone's impressed, I think, because I was a goalie. But we also got to check us out on the prompt for the super chats at Leafs Nations 401 on YouTube, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast, and visit LeafsNation.com. Okay, with that is now done. We're free and clear, baby. Now it's me and you. We can guide this ship wherever we want to go.
Now the business is done. It's time to take care of the rest. Freewheeling, buddy. What do you got for me? What do you got? It's I don't know. It's always an exciting week in Leafs Nation, isn't it?
There's always something going on, whether it's an off day or what it is. I know American Thanksgiving, but the talk right now is, according to Chris Johnson and Tavares' agent, the Leafs have held talks earlier in the season. However, they haven't settled on a number here. What's your take on this Tavares deal and where they're at? And, what do you think moving forward for this guy?
Yeah, it's funny, right? We're at the end of a contract, a big contract that you gotta go heavy with it to lure a guy out of the market that he was in on Long Island. And they did, and $11 million a year these last 2 years. Has he been worth it? You could say, well, no, but at the end of the day, that's what it takes to get him on your team. What was the point of that? Knowing that he probably wouldn't be worth that at 34 years old. Well, you try to win a Stanley Cup with him. Did that work? No. Is it John's fault? No. Has he been effective? Yes. I mean, overtime scores the goal to put them into the second round for the first time in 20 years. He's been productive. He's been fantastic this year again. Doesn't show a lot of signs of slowing down. putting up numbers, good on the peeper. He, gracefully passed the captaincy down to Austin Matthews. By all accounts, this guy is a Maple Leaf, wants to be a Maple Leaf, and if you lose him, you're just going to look for him again. So it's all about money to me if you're signing John Tavares. I don't see there being a big rush unless you think it's going to be a distraction, which honestly things can be in Toronto when something's unresolved. The media is just going to beat it like a dead horse. And I don't mind signing him. It's just the amount of what. And I would like to think that John Tavares would say, you know what? Been making hand over fist money the last couple of years, maybe more than, what my value is. And I'm ready to take kind of a hometown discount, give you guys a break so that we can try to actually get over this hump and get the thing done that I came here to do. He wants to be here. He's from here. His family's all set up. I don't see why he really wouldn't. I'm aching back a little bit to that, tax issues that he's got going on. I think the government came at him for a big fat chunk of money. I can see that sitting in the back of a guy's head when he's thinking about taking a discount. But it's value for me. What's he going to make? If he's at $5 million, I say do it this morning if you want. But it just depends on where him and his agent are at, and how much he wants to push. If it's John telling his agent, hey, listen, I'm willing to take this. I want to stay here. I want to get, I don't want any, negative press. I don't want the media or the market to be on me about wanting more when I've already taken so much. If he wants to do this can be easy, quick, and clean. But it's I honestly think the ball's probably in John's court, because I'm sure they'll re-sign him for a deal that makes sense for certainly the Maple Leafs. And if John's willing to play ball, I think we want him back.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he's a player that still has value. You look at his numbers: 21 games played, 9 goals, 11 assists. Like, yes, playing with Mitch Marner and he's producing, but he's a pest out there, right? He doesn't quit. And we had Adam Copeland on yesterday, and he made a really good point about that. Is like, when you watch him play, he's a guy that, like, you just don't want to play against either, right? He's going to do the gritty things. He's going to do the things it takes. And his game does translate well in the playoffs, right? I know he's slow of foot, but he's a guy that I think he can play down your lineup as well, which I think is very important for this Leafs team. And I also think it's time for somebody to take a pay cut, take a hometown discount. We see all these other teams. We've seen the Bruins do it for years. We've seen, McKinnon taking like less money and guys trying to help their team win. Like, when does that happen here? When does it happen here? And I hope that JT is the guy, because at this point, it's not like he's making life-changing money no matter what he gets. Even if he goes out to the highest bidder, I still think it's just kind of a cherry on top of what he's already made. So that would be the feel for me, is like, okay, you want to win here? Now show it to us that you want to commit to this team. And that's kind of where I'm at with that, Rosie.
I think so. And at a juncture like this with a player like that, I mean, he's tailor-made for front office material, right? He's going to, I can't speak for him, but it would make all the sense in the world for him to be, a perfect front office guy with the Toronto Maple Leafs and be there for long term. And I know it's not exactly kosher to talk about or to even do, but you sit down with the ownership of the Maple Leafs, and that ownership group's going to be there for a long time. So that's why I say them, because other guys kind of change over time. Who knows what's going to happen? But you say, hey, listen, John, there's a good chance we're going to want you in the front office after this, after your career is done playing. There's going to be a seat for you in some respect. We'll get you paid in that respect. And we'll remember this. If you take a hometown discount, we'll remember this. We got a cap going on. We got, issues and players and signings and whatnot. If you take the hometown discount, it's going to be great for you and your reputation with the fan base. We'll remember it come post-career time, when you're going to come. Probably, I would assume it would make total sense for him to stick with the organization in some capacity and continue on his career in the front office. So you could kind of sprinkle it with that to kind of make it worth the while for John to think about down the road. You know what? Maybe this will come back full circle, and it's not going to be, like you say, life-changing money either way. $1.5 million here or there to John. Like, what are you going to go buy a different boat? I doubt it. I bet you got the boat that you want right now. You know what I'm saying? So I would love to see just a nice, clean, easy deal. Handshake. Hey, we'd love to have you for this. You're more than worth that. And he says, I'm happy to play for the Leafs for this. That's the most important thing to me, and do all the right PR things. End of discussion. Wipe your hands clean. You got John for the foreseeable future. So being at 34 years old, he's far from over the hill, but that is the age when you start to feel it. You start to lose that little fast twitch step. For a guy like him, that's not the speediest guy in the world, I think that is something you might notice. What about you when you were at the end of your playing career? What age was it that you started to feel that? It's different for
Yeah.
everyone, but
Yeah, a little bit different. Well, for me, I felt like at 28, 29, if I didn't get a good night's sleep, I couldn't burn it at both ends, right? And then all of a sudden, yeah, I agree. Your training starts to change, right? Like your bounce back, your recovery, where I would have a game and it would set me back a little bit, right? There was so much more, you had to be so much more diligent on the other end. And I think John Tavares does that, but your diet, your sleep, your everything that goes into it. Now you mix in kids and a family and life. And it's not like when you're younger, right, Rosie? You get it. Like when we were younger, you could just go home and have a nap, right? You go home from the rink, it's like you're in it, right? There's a lot going on that I think from the outside people don't see. And on the other positive side, I think for John Tavares is he's a family man. He has his kids. It's tricky to uproot your family and move and go to a different place. And now they're in different schools. Now they have different pediatricians, different dentists, different. There's so many little, and I don't want to act hard done by, right? Because you get paid accordingly, right? And that's the cross we bear being a professional athlete. And it sucks at times, right? But those are things that are going to go into his decision, right? His wife likes it there. Your kids like their school, they have friends, and there's so many different things that go into it beyond just hockey, right? Beyond wearing the maple leaf, just life in general, right? And those are things that he's earned and he's sacrificed to be in that situation. So I think it's an exciting time for the Leafs, where they're at. But the one that, like, he's tailor-made for the front office. I totally agree. And I think the carrot that's in front of him is like, we're so close, right? He knows they're close. They're a piece away. And maybe him taking a discount deal helps them secure somebody on their back end, helps them find a guy that can push them over the top. That's the biggest thing for me, Rose.
yeah, I agree. And you look at the Leafs cap situation in the past, they're within like $50 or less. I mean, it's tight. So don't tell me that $1.5 million when you're in the mix for signing that blue chip D-man or that centerman that's going to whatever it is, that makes a bloody difference. And I just can't imagine that, John, with all the things that you mentioned of uprooting the family, being in Toronto, they haven't done that a whole lot in their career. I can't imagine they want to do it again. What, for another $1.5 million, they're going to uproot their family and go to such and such a place, move back to the States, everything that comes with that. I cannot imagine they want to do that. So I hope that the Leafs just stand firm and say, John, we want you, but we want you at this. And that's because it gives us opportunity to win. We are close. Those little pieces, you could be the reason we get over the hump because, and then is he going to dig his heels and say, absolutely not. You want my services. I'm going to need to be at 6.5. I just don't see it. So I'm hoping this comes to a conclusion quickly, easily, and, everyone can see that makes sense. I hope it's one of those and it's not like, well, they're close. Like, I don't think they need to grind over this. What do you need to stay? What's insulting to you, John? You're not going to sign that. What's reasonable? That makes sense to the Leafs? Boom, shake hands. And that's the thing. I hope it goes that way.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you there. And I think it will. He's already made that move and that's where he's at. And, we didn't get a chance to talk. I was on yesterday and after the Florida game, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. This is a game that, sitting in the weeds, still without Austin Matthews. We talk about Matthews, Nyes, Domi, Yarncroc, Kemp, Pacioretty, and now possibly Bobby McMann. Watching that Florida game, like, what's your takeaway from that one?
Oh, I just absolutely shelved it. I mean, I just can't believe what they've done with the injuries that they've had with Austin Matthews, with their power play woes to kind of start the season. For them to rattle off the numbers and the points and to going through what they've gone through with all those players, most importantly, Austin Matthews being out of the lineup, to just somehow power your way to the top of the division with all those bodies out. The fact you drop one on a Wednesday night to Florida when they are just got their, peepees whacked by Maurice. Has that vigor in his mouth and saying, you bet, like when he barks, you listen. And you knew there was going to be a response from Florida. It's in their building. The Leafs were primed to be like, okay, we have done everything we can. Honestly, those injuries just caught up to them. I chalk it up to that. Move on. It wasn't even the Toronto Maple Leafs playing, for crying out loud. Look at their roster. I didn't put a lot of stock into it. Certainly, I can get fired up about poor efforts and all this, but at the end of the day, the personnel just caught up with them. I think they're ripe and ready to get, the Paciorettys, the Domis, the Matthews, the Nyes is back in the lineup and pick up where they left off before that game.
Yeah, I think there's lots to go off of that game too. Even the fact of the matter is, getting a kid like Mitten and Grabowski and a chance to like play in a meaningful game against a team that is really good. There's, little things that you can take away from it, but at times it's just, I guess how bad it could have been, they still look good. The structure still looks there. Their back end looks good. Stolarz didn't have a great night. And again, it's one of those I think you just don't even watch the video on that one. You give the boys a day off, you move forward, you get ready for Tampa. But it feels like these injuries at some point, like, let's just get back to our team here. Like, let's see. That's where I guess where I'm at now with this team is like, they've shown us so much, right? They're first in the division, right? We're at American Thanksgiving, and that is always kind of the standstill of like, you kind of know what you got at that point.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's like, I feel like we haven't seen the whole team. We haven't seen everybody, roll here for a bit. So I guess just trying to I'm not sure about Domi if he's even on the trip where he's at, but you got to get some NHL players back in the lineup, because you know how it is. I know how it is. We've been in this situation where they're literally just looking for guys that can stand straight up, that can be on the ice right now. They just need bodies, where when they start to get some NHL guys back, now we're really going to see where we're at and what they have, for me, Rosie.
Yeah, for sure. And by all accounts, they should be way behind the 8 ball right now with the injuries they've had. They call guys up. I mean, they have some depth back there. They have some prospects. And by all accounts, when you call them up, they're all hot. They're all horny. They fly out there and they make an impact. And you say, wow, we got something. But if you're going to go with that lineup, which is that many guys that started the season on the Marlies, it's going to catch up to you. And I think it did on Wednesday. It's perfect timing for these guys to get healthy. They might have to grind a couple more games through the weekend. We'll see where it goes. And maybe some guys kind of start to sprinkle back, but I wouldn't be surprised if Matthews was back. I don't know what's going on with Domi, but if Nyes was back this weekend too, I think it would start to alleviate that problem, because they can't keep rocking this roster for that long and expect to climb up the standings the way they have. I think it's phenomenal job, like mission accomplished. You weathered the storm. These guys are going to start getting healthy. Like, hats off to them. They should be, by all accounts, way behind the 8 ball in the standings right now with what they've gone through. And instead they've climbed up to the top of the division, which is just fantastic. So yeah, I'm excited to get them healthy, get them back playing, and see what they can do with a healthy roster that includes Austin Matthews.
Yeah, I know. I hate to say it, but it feels different this year. I know it's one of those things that it's bit us all in the butt before. But we also have a couple super chats. I want to thank Tammy for a super chat. She says, "Off the Rails Friday Players Edition." That's right, Tammy. This is the real deal. All players here.
Amateur hour, God damn it.
And then we also got a question from Luke Woodworth. What are things a young player like Minton can do to not become mentally overwhelmed at NHL level of play?
Well, I would say you keep it simple. Like I said, you get called up and you're going guns blazing, and you really want to make your stamp, and you want to make it's kind of a first impression in some ways, not all of them, but your guns blazing. You're absolutely fired. Your adrenaline's popped, and you go and you score your first game, and fantastic. But at the end of the day, like I said, you start to settle in, and I don't think that he's needs to be ready to make a huge impact on this roster. I think it's fantastic that he got this opportunity to gain this experience while the injuries are there. But if he's going to keep playing, it's keep it simple, work your absolute balls off, and pay attention to those little details. Pay attention to what Craig Berube is saying in the room. Some guys are just, doing their skates, and it's in one year and out the other. But as a young kid, like Craig Berube, before he addresses the team, he's going, what are some points that I really want these boys to hit on this particular game? And that's what he's going to give to the team. It's maybe 3 points of, make sure you protect the puck and be smart on the blue lines, get it deep when it's a 50-50 chance or low, and forget about low percentage plays, no turnovers type of thing. So if he's working his bag off, being smart at the blue lines, chasing it down, and just those little tiny intangible things where every time he comes off the ice after a shift, Chief was like, that's what I asked you to do. That's what I asked you to do. It's those little things that are going to help him out. And every time he gets a shift in this league, he's gaining a little bit of confidence and a little bit of experience. And that's invaluable. At the end of the day, I think he's going to go and develop a little bit more down in the Marlies. And I think that's going to only serve him, but make the most of your time while you're up here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like for me, from my experience, obviously a great question. It can be a bit overwhelming, but that's why I think it's so important, like your time in the minors and taking your bumps and bruises and learning kind of to figure out who you are. So then when you do get that opportunity to play, you have some things put in place mentally to be able to manage the moment, right? To be able to stay in the moment and understand that it's just the same game, right? You have to go out there and do the things that make you a good player, not try to be somebody you're not. I think that would be my advice to like a young Fraser Minton, is just to be yourself, right? There's a reason why you're here and what's expected of you. And it's going to be very black and white, right? A coach is going to grab him. It's going to be laid out. And the biggest thing is just to understand it's the same game. It's literally the same game. You just make a bunch more money, right? I used to always joke around with guys when they get called up, like, just try to be yourself, try to be relaxed, because What I even see it right now with Nick Robertson. This is a great example. He's trying to do too much. He's trying to be more than he is, and at times it starts to snowball on you. So for a younger guy coming into that situation, I think you just got to try your best to be yourself because it can be overwhelming. But I think that's why the minors and, developing through that system really helps guys. So then you've dealt with this situation before. You've had a bad game or you've had some psychological side of it where you can catch yourself and be like, okay, it's okay. I got this. I'm not overwhelmed. And for me as a goalie was different. Sometimes I would play in a big game and honestly, I would be thinking about the game the night before. And I'm like, why am I worried about this? Why am I causing myself stress over something I can't control? But it's easy, right? Because you care and you want to do well. And I think for younger players, that's something that is super important. And, for him, I think now heading down on this road trip here for the Leafs, they obviously have a lot of hockey coming ahead of them, right? There's a lot of games coming up. Going to Tampa, it's kind of a sneaky big game here for me, Rosie. This is one of those ones where Tampa's going to be on a back-to-back. They're playing the Preds the night before. So hopefully, maybe they don't get to see the big cat in net. What do you think about this matchup here on the road coming off that Florida loss? Now, obviously, hopefully, maybe Austin Matthews back in the lineup.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is what's the lineup look like. But, the Lightning are nipping at your heels there in the division. You're still sitting there where your game in hand is gone, but it's not like the standings at this point in time is all that important. But I really think that if they don't get some guys back, they're going to start leaking oil. Like this lineup's going to catch up to them as it did with the Panthers. So getting those key guys back and getting this is where Austin Matthews needs to be a voice in the room and really show that C is where it needs to be and say, hey, listen, guys, fantastic job while I'm gone. Let's bear down on this one. Like you said, they're on a back-to-back. The start's going to be huge. We have to start on time, start off with a bang, clog up the middle, defensively responsible, no turnovers, no odd man rushes, kind of really put the coals to these guys on their back-to-back. Try to get momentum on your hands, get control of the game right off the bat, see if you can take one on the road. And again, it's up to the personnel that are on that roster. I don't think they can continue doing what they've done with the roster they had on Wednesday. So at the end of the day, my fingers are just crossed. We get some of those big boys back that can be an effective part of winning a game because it's thin right now, man. And again, hats off to what they've done, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not. And I agree with you too. I think there's a lot of pressure put on the guys that are left in the lineup. You talk about Marner and Tavares have played great. There was obviously the Florida game. Again, a few plays you want to get rid of. William Nylander at points, he's jumping over the borders and I feel like he's playing with American League players, right? Like it's been tricky and he has done well. So this is going to be a good measuring stick, I think. And also I think the fact of the matter is the standings are still pretty tight, right? Toronto's 4 points up on them. Tampa Bay has one game in hand, which I don't want to calculate that as points, but after tomorrow, if they beat the Preds here, they're going to be 2 points back even with them. So it becomes a very big game, I think, in this Atlantic Division battle because of the sense the Metro is so strong this year as well, right? So there's also that to take into play. The other thing is just the bodies, right? I look at guys, and now obviously this is kind of my area, but again, I'm the host here, Rosie, so I'm going to lead with the questions.
Steer the ship, big boy.
Do they go to Wall here now? Or is this just like a bounce back, you think? Like they just keep rolling here now because Wall's played very well. Stoller's obviously been great. I think arguably one of their best players. Last game wasn't great. Do you think you see Wall here tomorrow in Tampa?
I think it would make sense to kind of hit them now. There's no reason. I mean, unless you think that and I'll ask you about that. Like, what do goaltenders want? How much say do they have? I mean, when you look at a guy like a forward, for example, he doesn't get a lot of say of what line he plays on, who his line mates are, how much ice he gets. But I think it's different with goaltenders, especially this goaltending duo. I think you'd be smart because they are in the same boat, right? It's not like it's a Bobrovsky and Stolarz. It's these two guys that I think you would look at as pretty equal, especially now that Stoli has come in and kind of stole the show. Wool's gotten his feet under him. I look at them as equals. And because of that, I would say, how do you guys want to do this? See if they can come to a consensus on what they want to do. Do you want to switch hit it? Do you want us to ride the hot hand? Inevitably, you're going to have waves of coming and going. You could say Stoli has had his huge uptick. Is he going to sustain that all season long? I mean, that would be incredible and very difficult to ask of him. Maybe he's going to kind of come down a little bit to reality. Maybe it's Joseph Wool's time to take over a little bit. At the end of the day, I don't really care. I want them to internally figure that out and go with what makes them comfortable and confident. Where do you see it from your point of view?
No, I'm with you there. I still feel like from the management side, what I've seen, they think Joseph Wall has like a higher ceiling, right? Which, and I totally agree. I think if you know, gun to your head right now, Anthony Solar is just starting game one of the playoffs just because he has that, you know, he's earned it. I still think there's that question mark around Wall with his injuries. Like even last game he makes, or the last game that he had played, he'd make a big save late in the game, that toe save. I'm watching as just a viewer now on the outside analyzing it, and I'm almost like waiting for something to happen, like for him to be hurt. And he stays with it because I feel like I'm scarred a little bit because of his inability to stay healthy. So that is there, and I also think what you talked about is a really great point. I think there's maturity with Stolars. He's older. Wool's still younger. Communication is so big with goalies, like giving guys a heads up, making sure that you have something fluid moving forward because they're not necessarily competing with each other more than they're just competing against themselves. Truthfully, I think that is something very important for goalies to wrap their head around. I think from the outside perspective, everyone thinks that it's like this competitive job where like, if I go in and play the shits, what does it matter what Joseph Wall's doing or Anthony Stolarz if I'm not controlling what I can control, right? So I think when you get guys to harbor that and make this like a team unity, two guys going at it, the Leafs are going to be better for it. And I also look at the schedule here. You got 9 games in the next 16 days in December. So the 30th up to the 15th, there's 9 games, right? So that is a lot of hockey, a couple back-to-backs where this is where you're going to need both guys going, right? And I think you're going to need a whole team going. And that's where I get worried about some of the injuries. But from the goalie standpoint right now, this is a good problem to have, right? How many years have we looked at Boston over the last few years with Allmark and Swayman, and we've been like, man, how I wish we had that. I wish we had that. And yes, they're not on that level, but we have a thing right now where it's like, I think whoever's playing, you're not really nervous about. And that is a very, very good cards to have for Craig Berube here.
Yeah, for sure. The thing I like the most about it is you don't have like a recent Vezina winner number one who's, you know, and then this up and comer, and there's that. Where's the hierarchy at? It just seems like they're both equal. And if Wool has taken the stage for a while and playing awesome, and you ride him a little bit, Stoley's perfectly capable of being that backup and waiting his turn. He's done it his whole career. On the flip side, if Stoley's, you know, playing well and playing hot, and you want to play him back to backs, which mean Wool doesn't play for a week, that's fine because of Wool's injury history. Let's give him this opportunity where here's a chunk of December, here's a chunk of November, whatever, where he's, you know, not beating on his body. He's able to do the rehab. He's able to see the guys he needs to see to make sure whatever it is that's ailing him or that has potential to, you know, come back and bite him, he's able to stay on top of that stuff. And I think that having this dynamic duo the way it is, and to be able to switch hit and not have any worry about people's feelings or egos or anyone coming up and stepping on someone's toes, it's not, there's none of that. And come playoff time, I think we're going to look back and say, man, that was pretty perfect the way we could switch hit those, because there's reason and rationality behind either one of them, and it's a positive no matter which way you go. And I think both guys can handle it, whether they're in between the pipes or they're watching that night. I think it lends to positives on both sides.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great take, Rosie. The fact of the matter is both these guys, like Stolarz necessarily, like I've been in that role before where you know you're the backup. You know, I've played behind Pekka Rinne, Vezina Trophy winner. I've played behind guys, and it's like I'm just making sure their coffee's warm between periods. And I'm doing whatever I can to be a good teammate, right? Where I think Stolarz can do that. And from all my interactions with Joseph Wall, you know, getting to know him when I was there, and the fact just watching him play, he's got a good head on his shoulder, right? So he's not a guy that's going to undermine anyone's success, which I think is super important in a team setting and in a goalie tandem. You know, you look at the Swayman and Allmark hug all the time, right? I don't know if we'll get to that level, but there is support. Yeah, big time. I would never do that when we didn't win very often, me and Allmark, so we didn't really get to hug that often. But and then, you know, honestly, for this lineup, right? Obviously, we have bodies, but like, you know, if Matthews is back and Nyes is back, like, who's coming out of the lineup for you? Like, as we move into Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Steves, first of all, for me, is just not, he's just not being an effective player at this level right now. I know he was doing well in the American League, but he comes up and he's a warm body, I think. And I think he's the first one to come out. Other than that, I think it's Alex Nylander. I don't think you're going to lose him on waivers. I think he's going to, you know, be a guy who can potentially come in and, you know, fingers crossed he can light up and be an impactful player. And honestly, at the end of the day, all you're looking for him to do is get points on the board. He's that type of player. He's bagels across the board this, you know, so far. Again, his first game up, there was some chances. I think he hit a post. That's all good and dandy. But the longer he stays on here, the more I think he's going to settle into just kind of being that filler guy, and we need to replace him with somebody. So those are the two guys that stand out. I think with Minton and Grabankin, I think those guys stay in. I love Grabankin's jam. He's kind of like a young Darcy Tucker coming in Russian style of disturber, and he buzzes and hits. And I think that the more experience you give him and the more Craig Berube can kind of, watch over him, talk to him, show him some video. This is, figure out where that line is in the NHL. I think he can be an impactful player and someone we'll probably use down the road. And I think Minton speaks for himself as far as a guy who should stay in the lineup and develop and keep using this time as a good experience for a young player. I think when Minton ultimately is a full-time player on this roster, you'll look back on this time and say that was pretty nice, the way he wasn't shoved into the center stage when he may not have been ready, when that spotlight's like, oh my God, like I have to put up or shut up right now. He's developing on the Marlies, getting his his professional feet under him, working on his confidence, and then he gets little tastes when some injuries, bugs happen, and they need him. He gets up and plays, but the weight of the world isn't on his shoulders, and I think that's really good for his development. So I'd continue on with that trend as needed, and those two guys I mentioned, I would yank out and ship back to the Marlies. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think that does too. And I think there's good experience for these guys that they've been in, but you also don't want to overdo it. And Grabankin and Minton on the bench talking was one of my fond memories from the last game. Just like, wonder if Minton has any clue what he is saying in that moment, trying to understand. They're trying to figure it out. And on the back end, a guy I played with, Connor Timmins, I thought he had a rough game. I thought it was the worst game I've seen from him so far this year. Do you get Hakanpää back in there? He's been healthy scratch the last 3 games. Like, what's your take on that on the back end?
Yeah, I think you got to give him some more reps. I mean, we've talked about how he's been out for so long with this knee injury. I don't know what his training regimen and routine was, how good a shape he's in, how strong his legs are, what his lungs and his wind is like. But from what we've seen, he's not even close. And that doesn't mean I'm writing him off. I think he needs more reps. I think he needs more time to get in there, get used to the speed, get used to his footwork. And if it's there, I think that's the only way it's going to come to fruition if you're going to use this guy. And if it's not, you can't really write him off and put him upstairs unless you give him an honest shot. So I think he's got to go back in. It's Benoit or it's Timmins. And I just like Benoit in the lineup, man. I just notice him. I like his confidence. I like his vigor back there. I think he's the first guy to stand up for people and understand that role, which the Leafs have been sorely missing in the past. So, and the fact that you just mentioned Timmins didn't exactly have a standout game last one, I'd put Hakanpää in. I'm not expecting him to be this world beater all of a sudden step in. I think the writing's on the wall that he's going to take some time to get up to speed if he gets up to speed, but you have to give him that opportunity and the time and the reps to make that deciding decision at the end of the day if he's going to be a contributing factor to the roster or not.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Benoit's earned the fact, to be in there. And the biggest thing I've noticed this year compared to other years is the back end being more predictable every night. And I think that just helps the goalies. I think it helps everybody moving forward. And every successful team I've played on, when your falter is to just be predictable and know where you're going and what your exit strategy is, makes good players, right? I always feel like players that when they don't have a play, know how to make the right play and the smart play and the safe play are the best players, right? Where in years past, it's like we talk about hope plays, something we've been exposed to a lot, where guys behind the net just throw the puck into danger areas. And I feel like in years past, that's what it got to, right? Pressure would come, they'd be applied, and then it would just throw the puck over. And you almost try to put that fire out while you're starting another fire, right? And it just snowballs on the team, where I feel like now it's more predictable. They know what they are. They're going to play in their structure. And I think that's what Craig Berube has got from this team so far, which I think on that back end, there's guys, yes, you can plug and play, but the main thing is you have your guys committed to winning and committed to the right thing. And I also see yes, we don't have those games where it's getting blown out, or, it's been as exciting to watch, I would say, on that side of it. But we want a team that's going to win in the playoffs, right? At the end of the day, that's all that matters. And historically, the way they play in the regular season, it just doesn't translate. And it's hard to turn that switch on, right? I've talked a lot about the Four Nations Cup, where when they're making teams for that, you want guys that play that role, right? It's hard to just paint stripes on a guy and call him a tiger when he's been an offensive guy. He doesn't know how to play on the fourth line. He doesn't know how to grind, where you need guys to do that. And I think that's what this team is building toward, especially on their back end and the predictability in their game. As a goalie watching it, it reminds me of teams when I played on St. Louis, and teams where we had a big back end and guys were so predictable. It made my life so much easier knowing what was going. Where, that being said, when I went to Buffalo, we had a younger decor. It was sloppy. It was all over, and it made my life a world of difference. And Rosie, we also got another couple super chats here. Okay. So I want to thank KPG for 2 super chats. He says, Rosie, you look super professional and prepared today. We want more of this pro podcaster, Rosie.
Hey, you can see the pen in my hand now, and I got the muffs on. I'm stepping it up a notch, but don't worry. Monday I'll be back to my old self behind the computer there. But
I thought you just did that for me. I thought you did it for me.
this is no, I was excited for this one. This is a special one, but I happen to be in this fancy barn burner studio, so gonna be writing a strongly worded email after this to Nation to make sure they bump up my set because this is impressive around here.
Yeah. And we got one more from KPG. It's the reason Tampa keeps winning is because they can move on from players if the price isn't right. Leafs will pay Tavares. Tampa would say bye-bye.
Potentially. I mean, what's the number? Everyone's number is different. I think people know what he's making now and where he should be comfortably, and then what kind of a little bit of a discount looks like. And I don't know if I just don't see them both digging their heels in. I think it very much depends on the beginning of that conversation. John, what are we thinking here? Where's your head at? What kind of term are you looking at? What kind of AAV are you looking at? What do you think works? What do you think helps the team? What's your goals here in Toronto? Obviously, I think the writing's on the wall that he would love to stay. I think that is kind of a given. And, come to a consensus where he's being level-headed, the Leafs are being level-headed. I think they can meet in a place that makes sense. And at the end of the day, it's not just money, money, money for John. He wants to win too. So if he understands and sees leaders like Crosby do it, I think it makes sense for him to say, this is still a lot of money. I think I'm worth this and maybe a little bit more, but maybe there's been a couple of years where I'm making a little bit more than I'm worth on the other side of things. So it maybe in his mind balances out a little bit. I hope it does. And at the end of the day, you want everyone to be excited when they re-sign him and no one be like, what are you doing? You don't want to hear 1 ounce of that. And I think by him kind of leaning a little bit to the lower side, maybe $1.5 million less than he would ideally be able to go get, I think makes sense for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's going to come down to what Tavares wants. We hit it enough on the head, but I want to thank you for those super chats. We're going to move on to a little game, Rosie. Take it or leave it.
Is it time for this again? I like this.
This is it. I got 3 for you here. Okay, buddy.
Hit me with
first one. You kind of hit it up earlier. So Alex Nylander will not get claimed when he's inevitably put on waivers.
Yeah, I'm going to. So it's worded weird. I'm pretty sure Nick worded that. He will not get claimed. I'm going to take that and not leave it. I'm going to take it. I think he clears waivers. Anyone from the beginning of last year could have had this guy, and nobody took him. He didn't sign with anybody. He was sitting with an American League contract throughout all the time that up to this point in time where he signed with the Leafs. He could have gone anywhere. Someone could have snipped him up and said, I'll take you. You're only on waivers for 24 hours. The timing of that, the Leafs are usually pretty strategic about. It comes and goes quickly. Teams got lots going on and different cap situations and contract and their own stuff going on. For little Alex Steves to get thrown on waivers from 12 noon at this time to 12 noon tomorrow, I think it's highly unlikely that someone's like, we absolutely need to pull the trigger on this one. I think he'll sneak down and get to the minors and continue his journey down there, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's one of those things. Teams don't miss on guys like this, right? It's not, yes, he put up some points in Columbus and he had some goals, and there's a reason why he wasn't signed immediately. So on to the next one here. Take it or leave it. The Leafs will add another blue liner now and the trade deadline.
I kind of think, I would like them to add, positive, and I'd love them to add bodies that make sense and that are effective everywhere. But I just think realistically, I think they need to focus on the center position and their bottom 6 depth. And if any deals get done, I think it's going to be in that position. I think that would suit them the best. I don't see their D being a problem right now. I think they're as good as they ever have. I think the OEL and Tanev effect is has been as effective as you ever could have asked for. Like you talk about, the defenseman earlier in that segment, and that's Tanev to me. You used to see guys get into trouble and get pressure and they would dump their problems on other people. That's snowballed on everyone. It's a recipe for D-zone time and scrambling and getting hemmed into your own end. It's a nightmare, and they just haven't been there this year. And it's I think a lot of it comes to Tanev. He's a guy that doesn't get a lot of accolades for the way he plays, but if they do something special, you're going to look back and say, holy smokes, was Tanev ever a big part of that? So I just think it's hard to add, and it's hard to make deals and hard to pull triggers and hard to do things at the deadline that makes sense because it's got to make a lot of sense for someone at the other end of things. And when a team that's going well and at the top of their division, I think you're going to be hesitant to break that up in order to sweeten the deal for whoever's on the other side to get something in return. So I think the forward position is what they're going to have to address. And I think I'll leaf it on the D trading, even though it would be ideal to add another great stud defenseman. I just don't think it's realistic. You?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it too. I just think at this point, it's it's too tricky right now to mess with what's working. Yes, I think at the trade deadline maybe, but I think right now is not the play. I think right now is about getting guys healthy, getting Hawk and Paw back in there, getting some players back into like, kind of see what they can do, right? They've been off for a bit, and I just think it's moving in the right direction right now. You need depth for sure. But the main thing is, you look at that McCabe and Tanev pairing have been so good. I think that is just sets the table for everything for this lineup. The main thing is going to be health, I think, for them moving forward. So on to the next one here for you. Take it or leave it. More than one Maple Leaf will be selected to Team Canada's Four Nations team.
I'm going to take it. I think Mitch Marner is a shoe-in, obviously. I think they've got him kind of slotted first line right wing there. And then it kind of gets, I start to think, well, obviously there's the other guys, but they're Americans and they're Swedes, and it doesn't really add up. But if you go down a little ways, I think that Tanev needs to be on that team. I know there's been guys that are kind of having hiccups, but they're kind of big names like I think Bouchard, for example, kind of been struggling. And how many of these guys do you need? And do you want to build? Are you just putting together a popularity contest with, high draft picks and this and that, and every guy's the same type of player? Are you trying to build a hockey team conducive to winning this type of tournament? And if you are, I think you need guys like Tanev. I mean, we've talked about it this show. He's so rock solid. He's so good defensively. He's got the grit. He's got that gumption back there to get into the dirty areas and play any style of hockey you need. And when I just watch him, I watch them take away his time and space, and there's not an ounce of panic. He always makes the smart play. He's just a defensive defenseman to a T, and I've been nothing but impressed with him this year, and I think he would be a good addition to that Team Canada. Whether he's the seventh guy or not, we'll have to see how things shake out, but I think he should be on that roster and an option for Team Canada.
Yeah, it's a really good. I'm going to leave this one. I leave it because I just think that there's just too many guys that have that role. It's going to be a dogfight, and I get what you're saying. I'm so with it. But if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, the last thing I want is Chris Tanev to make this team. The last thing I want him to be rested and taking a break and away from it. I want him to have a tweak. As the last game before something goes in, and he can say he can't go, because of the fact of the matter is they're going to need miles and a lot of work out of this guy. He's got to play a lot of minutes. And I'm with you on the Bouchard take. I think he's out of the lineup because you already have Cale Makar. He's going to run your first power play, right? Yeah. Other than that, you need guys that are going to have to play with depth. So I could see Tanev being that seventh guy. I can make an argument for Uyghur. I can make an argument for Colin Parayko. There's a lot of different bodies that can fit in that lineup, but for the Leafs, Marner's going to be a shoe-in, and I think that's enough. Even Morgan Rielly, I think he's a long shot just with the way that the D is going to be structured. But yeah,
me too.
If I'm the Leafs, man, I just want him to go rest, get ready, because we're going to need you come down the stretch time. So
I can't argue with that either, man. I don't mind if anyone's on that thing. We know what the end game is, and we know what problems we can get in with that time of the year. So if guys are healthy and get that rest, I'm totally for it.
Yeah, so that'll wrap up Take It or Leaf It. Now we're done the last call at Bet365. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all uppercase, today. Rosie, with that being said, what do you see on the board today? Let's help some people here see the light of the NHL lineup, because we got a lot of games in action here today on this Black Friday.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Rangers-Flyers game. Rangers, by all accounts, are struggling right now. I think they're on a 4-game slide. I think they're just a better team than that. I know morale is down. I think that they had that tough one last night, came close. In Carolina, they played, I believe. And I think that they're going to respond, and they're going to come out with their best and try to right this ship. And everyone's going to be hyper-focused. All the leaders are going to be in guys' faces saying, are you ready tonight? Are we going to bring our best? We know what to do. Let's fucking do it. Turn this ship around. And I think that's the first period over for them to win. That minus 1.5, you got them at 150, plus 150 on that. I think they're going to come out buzzing in the first period against Philly. Jump on that if you can.
Yes, I like that too. I'm taking the Bruins here against the Pens at home. I think in regulation, I just think that is a game. They always wear the black at home on Black Friday, American Thanksgiving. I think that is one that's like a tradition. And then the other one for me is the late game. I think the Oilers go in, and Vejmelka's played very well as of late for Utah, but I think this team is going to come out flying tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. So that does it for us today, Rosie. This was unbelievable. I'm glad you dressed up for me and you went to a specific studio. No matter what you say, I'm going to think it was for me, buddy. But I hope Nick is enjoying FLA. We will see him. He's at the game tomorrow, so he'll have boots on the ground. I'm sure he'll be coming back hot Monday with some up. And I'm at the game Monday against the Hawks. I'm bringing my little guy to Toronto, so it's all Leafs here on out, buddy.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic job, man. You make it easy. I mean, we'll start whispers about a permanent change might be in the air. We'll see. Poor Nicky Bobby. He don't have too much fun down there. He might be staying, but great job. Appreciate it. Anytime, buddy. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Well, like my kids say, if you like the show, give us a like or subscribe down below. I think that's how the kids say it. And thanks again, Rosie, and we'll see you next time, my man.
Right on, buddy. Anytime.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.